what's up? We are hanging out, talking about some code. So, let's see what to catch up on. So, we have Lunar Brain. Okay, so this is what I did for the past week. So, I flew down to Vegas to work on an idea that I've been building with really, I guess, kind of over the course of the past 3 years. And it originally started off as a project called Refinery. And unfortunately, Refinery, the website, no longer exists, but you can still see the app if you're one of the developers of it, me. And the goal of this project, this is what our company started off doing, was to make it just like easy to write code and have it run, and not just run so that it runs for you on your computer, but also to have it run in production. You know, like you want it to connect with things, you want it to run when your computer's not open. And it was a great idea, and unfortunately it didn't really span out, so because it was just really hard to sell. It was really hard to figure out. So I guess let's open up an example project here. So this is a little more involved one, but the idea here is that we're looking at a graph of an actual application. So these are, there are code blocks on here which, you know, contain code. In this case, it's Python for get pocket links, and there's a bug. And I guess let's back up here. So these things at the top, the icons are really bad, but it's supposed to represent an API endpoint. So I guess my video's in the way here. So if you click on it, you see the options that you have for the block, and this block is representing API endpoint. So you could hit this with, I forget exactly what the URL is, but you'd hit the API like this. You would run this command, it would hit the API, everything would run, including the code that is, starting with the code that it's connected to. So webhook comes in, that's gonna be a problem. So webhook gets hit on this API endpoint, and that request gets routed to a code block. That code block has access to what that API endpoint is. It can process whatever the request was. And what's really cool about this is, while the icons really suck to demonstrate what this is actually just deploying to AWS. So as you're doing your development, you're dragging and dropping blocks on here. So we can start with like an API endpoint. Oh God, this interface is just not great. So you have an API endpoint, and then you have to say add transition then. Oh my God. This is so insane. Then API response block. So when you did that, we've just essentially created an API endpoint. And if I were to click the deploy project, that would be deployed to Amazon, and you can run it, and whatever code that I put inside of here would run. Now, you don't need the API endpoint to run code. You could just have a single block here, and you could say run code. And again, because this isn't working, it's not going to work, but you could run that code in here, and that's how you would test. You would write your code, and then you could have input data. You could run it, see what it returns, all that stuff. So that was the idea. And you could we added things like the ability to write to SQS queues if you needed your pipeline to scale more. And it felt like a really good idea. As it was implemented, it wasn't really elegant or intuitive to use, as like you could tell with me trying to even just remember how to set up just a basic API endpoint. And there's incredibly clunky things inside of here. Like if you notice, it's just one file. And what happens if you had like a shared file? Like let's say Git Pocket Links and Git URLs wanted to share some code. How would you do that? So we had to introduce the idea of shared files, which are kind of like cursed. These are not great. So one, the editor is a completely different editor that you can either, you only have the option of seeing it full screen or in this tiny little box. And you would have to connect that to your block by, I think, clicking on it, add shared file to block. You'd have to click on that. And then, god damn, where is it? View block shared files. Yeah, and so it's nonsense. This is insane. This is not how you build this product, but it was really, really cool because as soon as you click deploy projects, you would go to deployment, you could run the code, you could see block executions, all of that would be logged. Let's see if, can we like run this? Does this just run or is it broken? Yeah, I don't know. I think it's just broken. But yeah, it's super cool in my opinion. And there were fun things that I was able to do with it relatively easily. And I added this feature to sync repo. I don't know if that worked or not, probably not. But this actually does isomorphic Git. So it's running Git inside of the browser and it's staging all of these changes, and this project could be synced to a GitHub repo. So but the fundamental problem that we made here was that we were trying to focus way too much on the UI as opposed to the developer experience. And what I mean by that is this is nice. It's nice to see the graph, but the developer experience is mainly run from the context of someone's editor. They have a specific workflow that they have. They don't want to be beholden to a website, right? As some SaaS offering. The code wasn't even open source. I actually just clicked open source, or I just made this repo public recently since we're not doing anything with it anymore. So if you want to check it out, it's here. That's the link. But anyway, so that's that. It's this like block system. You can put blocks together. You can have them run one after the other. You can have like events go on with like topics, all of that stuff. We're just repackaging AWS. We're kind of just picking up where AWS step functions kind of left off with the development experience, but we couldn't quite figure out how to get it working. So that's it. That's life. So that was like 3 years ago. And then we started Lunasec. And this was our security stint, 2 years. We were trying to make something work. And what I find interesting is as we were sort of pivoting from Refinery to Luna Defend, we still had this idea of like this, it's a really cool idea to be able to run code like Refinery. Like it's a good idea. It's kind of nice. And there's security guarantees that you get since all of those blocks that are executing are just lambdas under the hood. They're just lambda ephemeral functions that run. They get spin up, spun down. It's depending on how you set up the permissions on that lambda, it can be incredibly secure. A lot of really cool stuff with that. And so we took that with us, that idea, to Luna Defend, where the secure function was still kind of in the same spirit of Refinery, of there's a block that runs somewhere and it's a really secure block that has least permissions, and you can take sensitive data, process it inside of the secure function, and that is like a bottleneck for your security team to then go and review and be like, if they give the green thumbs up, yep, your code's good in that secure function, then we can give you so many other guarantees through the system. Basically, we were trying to think of ways of like, how do you, with one vulnerability, how do you make it so that all of the top 10 vulnerabilities that people are talking about, how do you mitigate those with a system? So that was Luna Defend. Again, another really creative engineering solution, but we did not have the market understood. We didn't know how to sell this. And of course, Luna Trace, we were working on it. really truly thought that we had nailed something, especially with our blog post, but just again, just could not get marketing to go. And it was really frustrating. It's like we thought we were doing something good, something smart, trying to make it work. Just wasn't happening. So that brings us to really like a couple weeks ago now, where we pivoted again from Lunatrace to now Luna Defend. We're keeping the Luna brand because we found that the SEO for names like that are actually pretty good. So we're just gonna stick with that, right? Whatever the next pivot is, maybe we keep that Luna. We'll have a really cohesive pivot story when we can line out all of our companies and everything's like Luna. The failed start of a company. That's what we are. So our current attempt to try to make this work is writing the hype train. Oh, okay. Oh, there. I remember that. So writing the hype train, AI, everyone's jumping on board. But we kind of have some ideas that I don't think that we've seen really play out. And they're inspired by things like Llama, and I've talked about this before in other videos, but I really, really like this project, Llama Index. I think it's absolutely fantastic. The idea here is that for LLMs to work more effectively, you need to have better recall into the context if you aren't able to fine-tune large language models effectively. Basically just like effective semantic search strategies. And I learned about this recently, but Microsoft semantic kernel. I haven't looked at this deeply, but I read an article about it, and this is like poetry in motion. This is almost exactly how I have been thinking about this problem. And what I realized reading about it is that this idea of prompt templating is really powerful, and that is what I had started to try to capture in the LunaPipe project, where it's ChatGPT in your terminal, and when you run it, it's super simple, but you can do things like bash pipelining. So you can add things to the context when you ask questions, and then you can pipe the output. So it's really terminal friendly, which is, I like it. People have been using it. They've been saying positive things. So it's definitely something in the right direction. I have noticed when I go to write templates, though, the experience is not really that great. So that's something that I want to figure out how to improve. But it feels like we're onto something. We have some ideas. We have ideas that line up with how other people are seeing this problem. It's a new problem space. There's a lot of money to go around. So I think we're gonna, do okay in the space. Not quite sure yet. This is a stream for building a AI startup after all. So, we're in it. We're figuring it out. So LunaBrain. This is what I originally started building before making the small little CLI for LunaPipe, and LunaBrain is currently incredibly opaque. It's just a bunch of code, very little docs. I have a video trying to talk about what's going on inside of here. A lot of stuff going on, and there's a lot of really cool things in here. There is this whole pipeline that I have built for collecting, extracting, indexing, normalizing, and transforming information so that it can be more effectively used inside of the LLM context. It's inspired by some books that I read on ML, like processing back like 5 years ago when I was originally interested in ML. And because I'm an engineer that likes pipes that go together, I just had to make the pipeline, I had to make it efficient to collect data and have it go somewhere and process. So that's what I've been trying to build with the pipeline. And what I realized, though, inside of that pipeline is something that just felt way too familiar as I was building it. And let's see, where is it in the code here? So we have API. We dispatch this off to the pipeline somewhere. Pipeline, collect, extract, workflow. Oh, yeah, the workflow. So, man, have I written this so many times where you have content that comes in and then you have all your different functions that are capable of saving content. If it's text, then we're going to normalize the text. If it's audio, we write the audio and normalize that. If it's a URL, you process the URL and then you go through, and then there's maybe some other things. And you glance at this and you have no idea what the fuck is going on. This is confusing. This is like code, but what it really is in my head, it's this beautiful expressive thing that's going on here, because it's not that long of a file, or I guess specifically here a function, but it's capable of of so much more than what it looks like, because all of these components, the normalizers, the processors, normalizers, whatever, they all come from primitives that exist within the repo, and I'm just pulling them in here and trying to process it. And I just kind of did dumb processing, and so if it's a URL, you right, we can trace this through. We take the URL, that becomes normal content, then we look up if it's a URL article or whatever. It's going to go through and summarize the content with LangChain, and then it's going to run some categorizers on there, categorize the information, save all of that, and then publish is if you want to write the results to Discord or Slack or whatever, you want to publish it to Twitter, I don't care. You just write a publisher. And publisher is this nice little package that has the ability to register a publisher. And so you just provide a publish method and do your processing inside of there. So core idea, really nice, really simple. The thing that I realized, though, why this felt familiar, is that we wrote this for Lunatrace because we were processing a bunch of different packages, or we were processing someone's package JSON to look up the packages, look for vulnerabilities, and scan them. We had this pipeline that we were building, and I noticed this in a friend's code too that I was looking at recently. A friend that works on Refinery. When I was looking at his code, I'm because he was writing this scraper, process news articles, and looking at his code, it's dude, you rewrote Refinery. This is a workflow, it's pipeline data, and he abstracted it all. So there's this config, and it was Refinery, but without the UI, and the UI, in my opinion, is it's a nice to have, but it also kind of is a requirement, because it's a requirement once you've realized you have a lot of parts that go together well, I would say. And it might be you don't even need to have them, to have all those different parts to maybe start with a diagram. You might be a visual person. And I just find that so interesting that things naturally want to be pipelined, right? When you have efficiency, they look like everything starts looking like a pipe, and you want to put them together and they want to fit nicely. So basically all this is a long way to say the past week of my life was in Vegas with some friends, and we were just hacking on that idea. And what we started working on was this project called Protoflow to try to represent these various ideas of pipelining and visualizing. So let's see if this code will actually come up here. So my goal with this is that ideally there's one command. There's one command you need to run. You just need to say protoflow. And by running protoflow, we're still in development, so we don't quite have that experience yet, but by running just protoflow, what you would get is a what port is it on? 3000. Classic. Let's go. Come on. Yeah, by running protoflow, you would get this workflow editor, and the workflow editor is something that has foundational concepts inside of here that are conducive for writing code. One such example is an input. And an input is something that you would say like, okay, this is a my name. And my name could have a name, and then we can set the value of my name to Bread Chris. So this is a field, and the UI is not perfect yet, but it's functional. Oh, that's not even saving. Found a bug. I think we found a bug. That might have been fixed though. I think someone, oh no, that saves, cool. So I create something called my name, and my name can connect now to any other type of block, right? I want this to feel like you're connecting Legos together. So my name is an input, and I can connect that to a function. And this function can be called like, say hello. So now that my name is connected to say hello, we should be able to just run this. I think this works. Yeah, let's see. Well, maybe this works. I think we wrote some nice code here. So, oops. Oh, I didn't build it. You have to do that. Oh, that's unfortunate. So you gotta say build. And now what build does under the hood is it looks at all of the blocks here, and it says, okay, well, say hello. Actually, I'll get to the details later. Basically, this creates a function that runs inside of a process, a Node.js process, that has an idea of what say hello is. And I can show you that code, but let's see. Let's run this. We're going to run workflow. Cross your fingers. Ooh. No dice. Alright, is it? Start running. Oh, I think I totally messed something up here. Let's see. I'm messing up the code. I added this thing that doesn't spin up the resource language server. I'm looking for language server. The hell is it? Let's get here. Oh, language server's type. Just clean up. Clean up. File type. Go. Okay, clean up. We do resource init. Go down to implementations. I want this one. Close on cleanup, and we'll just comment that out. So now we run our code. Now it won't. Oh, I need to stop the process. Stop the process. Okay, JSOX grep node. Let's see, I want to stop this one. Okay, I do go reload. Now we got it. Run workflow. We're waiting for, so this is the process that's starting up. This is our, so this is a gRPC server. So say hello is a function that is a gRPC method that runs inside of this process that's trying to be started up. Why is that taking so long? Okay, well, let's just manage this ourselves. So we can go in local and then we can say npm run up. Dang. Oh, npm run dev. Nice, nice. We're dev now. Oh, syntax error. Oh, say hello. Oh, you can't have an exclamation mark, silly. We need to fix that one. So say hello. And so now, I guess, okay, so this would be a nice example. So that has say hello there. I do a build. So command control B. That is not working. Oh, because that's not up. So we'll start up the server that actually does the building. We go to build project. So we saw say hellos right there. This is the protobuf definition for the service. We run it again. No more exclamation mark, and that's because the service is being generated by Protoflow. So now that that's there, and then, oh, that's why it wasn't starting up. So I think now we can do that. Run workflow. Starting up, you can do it. Excellent. Cool. So what we see in this output here. Oops. Okay, we're not going to get any bigger there. It's okay. So what we see in the output is say hello got some value. And that value, if you notice, is what the input block was. An input had a name. And so the function that's running in Node.js now has access to that. So if we go into the code here and we say vim functions, say hello, not with the exclamation, and we change this now so that, what do we want to do here? What's fun? I'll do if name, or if value dot name is equal to Birdchris, we will say return value. You are a great developer. If not, then we will return you can't code to save your life. So cool. So we just updated the code, and this code maps this block. So effectively what we did is we've changed the implementation of this block. So none of this thing has changed at all. This view has changed at all. But if we go to run the workflow, you'll see that instead of say hello got, it'll say you can't code to save your life, because that is not right. Why is that not right? Let's debug it. So let's see what the contents of value is. So console.log value, and then we save the file. I don't think we see the, oh yeah, so this was, so we saved it, and then we'll say npm run dev, so that we can view what's going on inside of this process instead of just having the backend bring it up. So we run it, and it looks like it's okay. So this is kind of a shortcoming of our current implementation, but you'll notice there's quotes around here. So this is a string, so we need to like parse it. So we'll say value is equal to what is it, json.parse value. So we'll just like unpack it from being a string to an object. So we can run npm run dev, and then obviously we'll have much better experience for that. Like it'll just be like watching, and then if you're editing your IDE, it will just auto reload. But run the workflow again, and can we still not code to save our life? Interesting. Why can't we code to save our life? Name, breadcrust. Value.name. I don't understand. Undefined. Why is that undefined? I don't understand how JavaScript works. How does anyone code in JavaScript? Value.name. Am I missing something? Value at name? I thought this was like the same thing though. Okay, server started up. We run it. Undefined. What the? What the? What the? What am I looking at here exactly? What is the type of value? What the hell is this thing? Because I think it's supposed to be an object. String? It's still a string? Do I need to do JSON to parse again? What the hell? That can't be right. There's no way. Yeah, it was. Okay, well, you know, MVP. We got it. We did. I think we did an okay job for a week. So, but anyway, now that we have that connected, what we can then do from here is we can store this into a collection. And a collection represents a collection of things. It's just stuff. And I think these icons do a pretty good job of explaining what's going on. We've got to name this something. So we'll say this is greetings. In the table is greetings. So we have our input. This contains our name. Our name is Breadcrust. We have some logic that runs that our server has, and that ends up in a collection called greetings. So if we run this, we should see our inserted messages or inserted greeting into the collection. So there you go. That's cool. So this is value. You are a great developer. Now, if we wanted to see, let's run this one more time. So we got 2 in there. 3, sure, whatever. We can just keep running. We just have a bunch of greetings. So once we have those greetings inside of there, we can grab another, oh no, so it's not a collection block. Now we want a query block because we're interested. What is inside of our collection? So we'll say get greetings from table greetings. So if we run this, we will see all of the greetings that have been inserted into our collection. So while this is like a cute little example of, you know, these blocks being connected to each other, it gets really powerful really fast. And the whole time as we were developing this, we were just kind of having like these oh shit moments of like, this is so cool. And the reason it is so cool is because of the way that this is written and the the principles of development that we have been instilled in us as developers that have worked at companies. We know what it means to scale, and the abstractions that are in here can make for really cool stuff. So this, if you understand how gRPC works, or really just like the web in general, if you separate the layer of like what it means to call into something versus the actual thing that is being called into, you can swap out how the communication is happening. And that is like a founding principle of gRPC. It is a remote procedure framework type system, or the type systems like protobuf type interface. It's just like a definition of the fundamental definition of what we find ourselves writing code as, and it's like a service. Everything comes back to just being a service, and say service has methods have input and output. We can look at what the protobuf is being generated, or the gRPC definition, and we have our service, node service. It has, that should be uppercase, I think, uppercase node service, but we have our service, node service, and we have all of our things, and all of these methods map to blocks that are on here. And so while we have this as language node, we could have it as different languages. We only have the server implementation for node, but we could very easily add it for Python. Now, this is where it gets cool. So Luna Brain has a Python gRPC service, and that Python gRPC service exposes a bunch of really interesting things for ML written in Python. So transcribe calls into the OpenWhisper package to transcribe audio. Summarizes some text that has been passed into it, and it can summarize using LangChain. It can use a BERT model and grab a YouTube transcript, normalize, categorize, index directory, all these stuff that are helpful for ML, but it's in Python. Now, Protoflow, this thing that runs, it's all written in Go, so it doesn't know about Python. But what it all right, we're gonna do fallback cam since my camera overheated. Fallback cam. Beautiful. Beautiful, look at that. That's a camera. It's definitely a camera. Cool. So we got fallback cam up. Honestly, it doesn't look too bad. I'm just really anal about video quality now. So, yeah, so we have all these blocks written for Python, but they're a Python gRPC service, and I call into these using gRPC from the Luna Brain main binary. It's all Go. So I could call into those Python packages with Protoflow by simply running the Python gRPC service. gRPC has an idea of reflection, and if you're familiar with that, there's a reflection API that you can call to ask the server, hey, what methods can I call into? What services exist that I can use? And Protoflow can use that endpoint to understand what blocks that you can call into. So for example, there's a summarize method inside of the Lunabrain Python service. So you would have a summarize block. You would have the Lunabrain ML resources section like over here that you can drag and drop that summarize block into here. So if you have something like a Discord message that is, or a Discord message box that creates a Discord bot that listens for messages, you can pass those in to a summarizer from Lunabrain. And then from there, you can pipe that into a collection. Just like that, just by connecting. Now, all of those messages are stored in a database that can later be recalled by a query, or you can write a function that calls into the database and grabs everything that you need to. And where it gets like absolutely bonkers is just like you can call HTTP endpoints. So if a message comes in, like summarization, and then you see like a certain keyword, you could dispatch a webhook that triggers like, it calls in, like makes a tweet or something. Like, I don't know. It's like, what do you have? What do you have to think about? And all of those can connect together. There was a really funny moment when I realized, because of that gRPC reflection API, in Protoflow itself is a gRPC server. Protoflow can inspect itself to get all the services and methods it has, display those in Protoflow, and then if you dragged in the delete project block and ran it, you could make a Protoflow workflow that deletes itself, which is like really funny to think about. It's it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool to be able to do that, and or at least think about it. I guess the practical application of that is you could make a Protoflow workflow manager inside of Protoflow, which is like so funny to think about. But yeah, all these things. And what we are really excited to see is having all of these blocks, this collection as a project, collecting them all, right? So you have all these blocks, you collect them all and you shrink them down into one thing, and that one thing is a resource. Just like you have resources for what database that you're using. So that's another thing. The abstractions that exist here for the collection, for the bucket, and we'll add a queue soon. All of those abstractions are based off of this project that I've been obsessed with called Go CDK, Go Cloud, name kind of I'm not quite sure the name. And it's a very, very simple, I guess there's a bit going on, but it's a very clean, simple interface into accessing a lot of resources or a lot of clients. And someone at Google, really passionate about Go, wrote these abstractions so that if you wanted like a blob store, but you have all of these different places where a blob store could be, such as S3, Azure, Google Cloud Storage, or even testing locally, local storage, this is the abstraction for you if you're using Go, because it abstracts all of it away, and the only thing that you need to pass into it is a URL that says where it is. So if this is an in-memory one, you say mem : // if it's S3, I believe it's like S3 / Azure, right? And that creates it opens a connection to a bucket. Now you need to have the correct permission set up in your session, your environment variables, whatever. But if you have all of that set up, the client's just going to run, it's going to connect. And by simply changing the URL, you can go from local development, which is just a local file, local database. You don't need to target production. If you want everything to run in SQLite, you can. So you target the lowest common denominator, which is people's local resources. And then as you want to go and grow where you're storing, because you need to scale, you can change it to S3. And now you have world-class blob storage by quite literally only needing to change a URL, which is like it's so good. This is just such a great abstraction. And being a security engineer, the thing that really tickles me here is the idea of a secrets thing, a secrets, a centralized secrets connection client. And again, there are so many different services that it has configurations for, including HashiCorp Vault, which isn't even a cloud thing, but it's a standalone service that everyone uses. And so it's so cool to see that in here. The person building this really knew what they were doing. And they even have the idea of local secrets. Now, what's cool about local secrets is that I came across this technique through some people asking me about it, actually. They were asking my opinion as a security engineer if this is okay. And I remember hearing it for the first time and just being like, what the fuck? It blew my mind. It just hadn't occurred to me before. And it's like, yeah, I've seen a couple of people do this. Like, is that a good idea? And what it was storing secrets inside of a GitHub repository, and not storing them in a way that they're plain text and someone can go across the code and start using the secret, but storing them with a master key and encrypting them. And I thought about that for a second, and I'm just like, I think this is a good idea. I have seen so many problems with secrets in code and people not understanding how to do them, thinking that it's just like, I've heard through the grapevine about AWS Secret Manager, but I've never used it before. How does it work? And they can be tricky. If you haven't been developing, if you haven't integrated AWS into your system just yet, and now you need to set up a session, you need to add all this friction, all to just kind of, do the right thing. If your code is closed source, why do you care about putting secrets in code? What's the problem? You trust everyone that's looking at the code. Why does that matter? And it's like fair. It's a fair point. Why does it matter if everything's closed source, you're sharing stuff around? Now, obviously, you open up a huge liability if people that shouldn't be seeing those secrets see them, and you're working on a important project. So that's like PII, whatever. So encrypting secrets into a repo is a really interesting idea. And it's so cool to see that implemented in this library, because like that kind of suggests to me that people have thought about this, and it's okay. And as long as you really care about that one master password, and you have a shared password manager across all people on your team, which you should be having in 2023, by the way. If you don't have a password manager for your team, please, for the love of God, just do it. Go to 1Password. I really love what 1Password's doing. Go to LastPass. Do I want to recommend LastPass? Didn't they get compromised? One of these lets you reset the master password, which is like a no in my opinion. Should not be allowed to do that. But anyway, really cool to see here. I'm really excited to implement secrets. We don't quite have an idea about that yet. But if you can do that, you now have, configured this whole thing. You've orchestrated like a conductor, all of these different things that exist within your system. And you've done it in such a way that just, feels clean. It feels like I can show this to my mom, and I can explain it, versus all of the crazy number of lines of code that I normally write, and it's just like she has no hope to understand any of that. And to be fair, I can't understand a lot of code that I write when I look back at it like a month from writing it. It's just starting to look like hieroglyphics a little bit, and you need to rediscover it. But a graph, with pretty pictures, with text that explains what it is, and at a cursory high-level glance, you can see what it is. You click on it, maybe you go to like the GitHub repo or something like that, or the line on the GitHub repo where that function is. It's just really nice to think about. I think it'd be a really pleasant experience to code with something like this. So it's been really cool to be able to have the time to work on this and see it come together pretty much entirely how I have imagined it in my head, and dealing with not dealing with not the right word, but being in Vegas and talking about like our interpretations of things, how should things look, and battling out the semantics and getting people irritated of like, that's not the way that it should be. And it feels so cool to have that push and pull of what something that's abstract like this should look like, because there were times where, you know, I would see something and people wouldn't see it, and so I'd just keep like fighting and keep talking about it, trying to teach the way that I see it, and then they're, oh, okay, I see. And then also people saying things, and, you know, I'm not seeing it. It's like, well, how should this look like? And it's like, no, I don't. I think this is important. And then realizing, you know, just kind of like struck by lightning of like, oh, you're right. It shouldn't be like that. So that push and pull is really, really cool. I really like that. And I can't write UI to save my fucking life. I'm just a backend engineer, and I need to embrace that. And I'm really fortunate that there was someone there that knew how to do that. And yeah, it all just kind of came together. It's obviously not done. There's things to work out, but it's definitely coming along. I'm pretty happy with it. And what I'm looking forward to doing is incorporating all of the ML primitives that we have through Lunabrain in something visual like this, so that people can just like playing around with it, you know? Like, you don't need much to make something really go, especially with ML. You have an OpenAI prompt where you can like pipe in, right? Like, what can you imagine here? Like a function that's like get get tweets from Elon Musk. Boom. You do that, you connect it to the prompts, and yeah, just do whatever you want. And if there's the secret block, you could connect that to the prompt so that you could have your OpenAI token available, and maybe that secret is something you configure for all your projects, so it could just like be there ready and waiting for you to use it inside of there. But it's just really interesting to think about the possibilities and the foundation, the groundwork that we've laid to make those possible. There were definitely things that we discovered that had not been thought through as well as, you know, I would have hoped, but that's okay. We have time to go. I would like these things to fit more snugly together, so to speak. Right now it's just JSON that's going through. There's no option to have type checking to be like, can these two things go together? How do they go together? And so being able to implement that is a little tricky, a little challenging, because we're going to have to dynamically create protobuf definitions. And I found this one great Go library, as you always seem to do with Go. Just find a nice Go library that helps you build a dynamic protobuf. So not sure how it's going to work, if this library is actually going to do the job, but it's going to be a start in the right direction to figure that out. So definitely optimistic that that's going to work. And yeah, I think it's pretty cool. And I just think the biggest takeaway here is that coding needs to like feel fun again. I don't know. Like, I felt I had so much fun when I could just write small little websites and those to provide value. Like, the website that I have is, I forget if there's any JavaScript on here. If there is, I'm going to try to get rid of it because I don't want any JavaScript. I guess there is technically this, but I just like it. This is fun. It's really fun to write blog posts on my site now, and it's just text. It's only text, but I feel so powerful when I can have the ideas that I have in my head and write them down, and literally in my note-taking system say #blog, and then when I run the GitHub workflow, everything gets published here, and I'm sharing like the thoughts that I have, like things that I'm thinking about. And it'd be so cool to have buttons on here where if I click them, they can run a Protoflow workflow. And I have this, right, I'm building my thing locally, and when I want to deploy it, we have this whole pipeline thought about, not actually implemented yet, where you would just say protoflow deploy and it could deploy to Kubernetes. All of these different services, since we know what they are, we can deploy them and make sure that they exist and they're able to be called. So really cool to think about that sort of thing, and making coding fun, being able to have a button on a page. And actually this project, Val.town, is doing a really great job of making coding fun. It is, let me see a few code here. Where's the code? Show me the code. There you go. So val.town, open it up, write some JavaScript, run it, boom, it runs. Once you run it and you have it saved, people can now take that function that you have written and then include that in their own code, which is a really cool idea. And it's really neat, but unfortunately, it's not something that's going to scale to like a bunch of different people to be able to use it and have it feel like connecting Legos together, that satisfying click that you get. It's not going to quite feel like that, unfortunately, because of the inherent limitations of JavaScript and the abstractions not quite being there. At least being there in a way that's like consistent and like feels good to play with. I also noticed that this project isn't open source, and it's just the engineer in me that I can't get that excited about things that are not open source. If you can't see it, it's just like, it just doesn't feel right. Code needs to be free. I totally get Stallman. I totally get what he's going for with the whole open source thing. And yeah, this is all open source. If you want to go play with it, it's on Protoflow Labs. I have it as it's an MIT or Apache 2. Do we do Apache 2? Apache 2, yeah. Apache 2 license project. I wanted to be permissive, but I wanted to give some protection, and depending on what features are added over time, you know, the old joke is if it's your enterprise when you're writing a Jira integration. So it's possible those types of things, you know, we have behind a different license, just so that it's protecting whatever development is going on, so that we don't necessarily have people taking advantage of this project and reserving it. I'm still quite new to licensing, so if anyone's seeing this and they have ideas about licensing, I would be all ears, happy to listen. So another sort of aspiration I have about this is that it could be considered a part of the Cloud CNCF, Cloud Native Computing Foundation. Amazing collection of projects that embrace the building the open spirit and have Kubernetes as a part of this. Argo's a really cool workflow manager. It's.to, people are just using this shit left and right. It's a great collection of services, and it's all about incubating things that help cloud development. And I could totally see a space for Protoflow being in here, because I feel like this is a really good start to a application compiler, which is something that I haven't quite seen outside of Wasp-Lang. Really cool project. I love what they're doing. They have a really cool Discord, a lot of positive energy, a lot of people that are willing to listen, understand what it means to represent an application in a language. Again, it's all JavaScript though, and I just have such a hard problem like writing JavaScript. I don't know. It just doesn't feel right. I can't get excited about writing JavaScript. And I know people are diehard JavaScript people, and it speaks volumes that there's like 4+ million packages on NPM now. But it's things like the way that like Prisma works, where you generate the code and then it's like inside of your node modules. It's like that's not right. That's not how it goes. That's not how you should be writing code. Generated file should be something that is committed into your repo as like a file, because it's like it's generated. It's now like a part of your code base, but you don't necessarily touch it because it's a generated file and your changes would be overwritten. So it's just, I find some of these choices to be a little confusing, frankly. And the whole build pipeline, it fails. It's like so slow until people like SWC or ESBuild come along, where they're like just like tired of things being slow. And I think both of them are literally projects of one person, two different people, but yeah, SWC, TypeScript compiler, really just any sort of JavaScript thing, and just written in Rust, and just like combines everything into like one JavaScript bundle. And, or I guess maybe does it just transfile? Does it actually? Oh, it does bundling. Yeah, SWC pack. So amazing project. Everyone loves it. It's fucking fast. It's blisteringly fast. I like ESBuild because, what do you know? It's written in Go, and it's pretty fast. It does its job. I think it's really well written. Definitely, it's got a lot of things. I think Vite under the hood uses ESBuild now. ESBuild, yeah. So there's some hope. And the mantra that we had in Refinery was just put it in a block and forget it, or put it in a box and forget about it. And with JavaScript, I just find that to be the best way to code JavaScript. You know, JavaScript, you can code so fast. No types, no thinking about it, just like churn out some code. But if you can manage to tame that JavaScript, that unbridled energy that comes with writing JavaScript into a box, and that box has types surrounding it, it kind of feels like a Lego. You're starting getting the benefits of a well thought out type system that's not going to fail on you. And because of gRPC, you can generate clients for pretty much any language, most major languages. You get a client that's typed and will stay in sync with whatever JavaScript code you've written. So, a lot of cool stuff. I think I've said everything that I want to say about this work so far, and yeah, we'll see how it goes. So until next time, read some code, play with ChatGPT. A lot of really cool stuff out there. Read some books. Go to LibGen. Take a look at LibGen. If you don't know what it is, just go there and start searching. So